This morning's meeting has been convened to discuss the State's National Carers Policy and the means assessment criteria, which is administered by the Department of Social Protection. Ireland has over 500,000 family carers, making up 1 in every 3 households, providing an essential service allowing older people and people with a disability to live in their own home and in their own community. The Carers Allowance was first introduced in 1990 and has been a valuable support to family carers throughout the country. While the pandemic has been incredibly difficult for family carers, it has shown us how vital their care is in order to protect our most vulnerable citizens. But the pandemic has also demonstrated the speed at which our social protection system can be transformed and adapted. The members of this committee and throughout the Oireachtas, in both government and outside, those supporting the government and those on the opposition, are all of the opinion that we must work towards a financial support system for family carers that is designed around the care that is given and must not be dependent on the bank account of the spouse, the husband or wife of the full-time carer. We on this committee have already received evidence of a carer with 3 profoundly disabled children who is ineligible for the Carers Allowance. And this clearly indicates to me that the current eligibility test for the payment is little more than a mean test, denying people financial assistance to support them providing such vital services in our society. At present, there are 116,000 full-time carers in Ireland, but only 89,000 are able to access the Carers Allowance because the current means test assesses all income coming into the household, not just that of the family carer. Of the 89,000 who get the Carers Allowance, almost half of them do not get the full amount because of other household income. It's important that we recognise that the Carers Allowance was not designed solely as an income support, but also to recognise the importance of supporting as many older people and people with a disability as possible to remain in their own homes. This benefit was even more pronounced as a result of COVID-19, and we must ensure that the vital role that has been played during the pandemic is reflected in a proper support structure to protect our most vulnerable citizens. Today we'll hear direct evidence for the very first time from 3 family carers, some of whom will be addressing the committee from their own home, because up to now their role as family carers did not facilitate them giving direct evidence.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Damien. I'm 65 and I'm a carer. My wife Mary is also a carer, but I won't tell you her age. We have 5 wonderful children. Una and Ailish are our youngest daughters. They are 27. They are twins, and they have a condition called Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome. Because of this, they cannot eat, drink, talk or walk. They have severe developmental delay, they have epilepsy and are doubly incontinent. They are non-mobile and they use wheelchairs, which we have to push. That's grand. They are peg-fed and their level of functioning is that of a 9-month-old baby. And they're 27 years of age. We love them to bits. In 2003, Mary gave up work to mind the twins and her other children full-time. Beaumont Hospital lost a brilliant accident and emergency nurse. Mary gave up a career she loved and she forfeited a salary and future pension entitlements. In 2013, I had to retire early from my job as an Assistant Director of Mental Health Nursing because the girls were now at the magic age of 18. I loved my job, but I love my girls more. 18 meant the end of school for them. However, they had no adult day services. It was not available. I retired early to look after the girls and fight for day services. And eventually we were successful. Carers Allowance is a means-tested social welfare allowance. It's paid weekly to people who provide at least 35 hours care to a person who needs support because of age, disability or illness. Many carers in our situation provide far in excess of 35 hours a week. In fact, often it is nearer to 24-hour daily care, as in our case. For those who are not wealthy, the Carers Allowance is essential to help them manage financially. The new scheme coming into effect in June gives a disregard for savings and investments of €50,000. Thank you for that. That is very important. The means test cut-off will be €750 per week, allowing an income of €39,000 per annum. For a couple, this works out at €9.38 per person over a 40-hour week. But this is far below the minimum wage of €10.50 per hour, which equates to €42,000 if both had full-time minimum wage jobs. In recent times, people who lost their jobs or were unable to work because of COVID were able to claim the Pandemic Unemployment Payment, the PUP. At one stage, this was valued at €350 per week. This would be a fair sum to have the Carers Allowance pitched at. Currently, the maximum Carers Allowance payment to a carer under 66 looking after one person is €224 per week. If over 66, they would get a magnificent sum of €262 per week. And that's only if they're looking after one person. So Carers Allowance is definitely a social welfare payment. It's not a payment for work done. It does not compensate for loss of earnings or loss of pension entitlements. Some carers may have a weekly work pension or work part-time. All earnings, income, investments and savings are taken into account in the means test. No allowance is made for the purpose for which the savings are intended. We don't all go on exotic holidays. If you happen to have money that puts you over the means test limit, it does not mean you are rich. It might mean you have more than you need for today, but it is necessary for future needs. This might be replacement vehicles, wheelchair vans, house repairs or improvements, respite breaks or extra carers to help, especially when it is so difficult to engage in essential therapies due to the difficulty in getting assessments for physio, occupational therapy or speech and language therapies, all of which are essential. We know there are about 500,000 carers in Ireland. Not all of them are full-time carers. In 2021, 115,000 carers received a carer support grant, but only 91,000 received Carers Allowance in some form or other. We know there's approximately 6,000 full-time carers receiving the carer support grant that did not qualify for the Carers Allowance means test, meaning the annual grant is the only recognition they receive from the state. But you know what? They continue caring for and looking after their loved ones. In many or most cases, if they stop caring for their loved ones, there's absolutely no one else to step in to do it. The state is not able to do it, yet the state has saved billions every year by the dedication and love of carers like us. All we ask for is to be treated fairly, with dignity and respect. We don't want to be facing a future of poverty and frugality. Our futures are bleak enough as it is, getting older and frailer and still minding our adult children when we are getting to a stage when we ourselves are beginning to need help. Thank you for your time and consideration and listening to us.
Thanks very much, Damien. We will now hear from Ms Niamh Ryan, Family Care.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. My name is Niamh Ryan and I am mother to twin boys who will be 14 years old in June. And my husband is a mid-grade public sector employee. I am also a full-time carer for our son Liam. Liam has a life-limiting condition. He has severe spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. He's a wheelchair user, is tube-fed, has epilepsy, global developmental delay, scoliosis, hip dysplasia, cortical visual impairment, and chronic lung disease or chronic lung conditions. He's on 28 doses of 18 different medications and 4 nebulizers every day. And that is when he is well. It's a whole different story when he's sick. Liam requires full assistance for all of his needs and personal cares. I have never received full carers allowance because my husband works, but we managed. However, in March, my carers allowance was slashed by €90 per week. That's 90. With inflation rising as it is at the moment, this could not have happened at a worse time. When I brought up the fact that the carers allowance that I get equates to 78 cents per hour, I was told that I shouldn't look at it as remuneration. I find that very insulting because being a carer is a job and is a very stressful job at that. I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no days off and no holidays. When family carers are told that what we do is worth so little, it really makes us feel quite worthless. But I don't have the luxury of dwelling on my feelings, because the cold hard fact is that the current system of means testing carers allowance is extremely unfair and puts families under extreme pressure financially. If there has to be a means test, it should at least be fair. It is not right that income is the only thing considered and that outgoings are not taken into account. The only outgoing that is considered is an allowance of €15 per week for travel, and we all know how far that gets you these days. It doesn't matter that, like many other families, we have a huge mortgage. We had 2 salaries when we bought our house, but I had no option but to give up my job to look after Liam. It doesn't matter that we had to take out a big loan to adapt our house to cater for Liam's needs. We did receive the House Adaptations Grant, but it didn't come close to covering the cost of the build. It doesn't matter that we had to take out another big loan to purchase a wheelchair-accessible van, to be able to take Liam to all of his hospital appointments and to make sure that he's not a prisoner in his own home. It doesn't matter that while energy costs are at an all-time high and still rising, that Liam's medical equipment has to be left on and charging 24 hours a day. This equipment includes an oxygen concentrator, suction machines, BiPAP machine, oxygen saturation monitor, air purifier, hospital bed, air mattress, ceiling hoist, nebulizer machine, and feeding pumps. It doesn't matter that our heating has to be on more than most, and Liam misses a lot of school through illness. Indeed, he only returned to school 3 weeks ago after cocooning at home since the start of the pandemic, and he has already missed a few days due to a chest infection. It doesn't matter that our light and heat are on more than most when we have nursing support at night. It doesn't matter that Liam's clothes are more expensive as they have to be adapted for his feeding tube and his wheelchair. It doesn't matter that we had to purchase expensive medical equipment, such as a ceiling tracking hoist and changing bench, as these were considered luxuries by the HSE. Not only did we have to find the thousands of euro to purchase this equipment, but we now have to bear the costs of servicing and maintaining them. It doesn't matter that we have extra waste disposal charges due to all the medical waste and incontinence wear. It doesn't matter that we have to pay charges for having prescription drug sheets written up every 6 months so that we can avail of our home nursing package. None of these things matter to the means test, but they matter greatly to us as we struggle to pay for them. At the end of the day, I have no choice but to be a full-time carer for Liam. Working part-time outside the home just isn't an option for me and many other family carers. And as for the disregard for savings of €50,000, well, that's just simply stuff of fairy tales to us. Despite this and how difficult, stressful and exhausting it is, I'm happy to be able to look after our beautiful, happy boy. And I dread the day and I won't have to do it anymore. Sorry. My family and many like us need help and support now. We don't need to be told, like we so often are, that family carers are valued by our government. I certainly do not feel valued. Sorry. There are substantial additional costs involved in caring for a person with complex medical needs. And I ask you to seriously look at these and consider making meaningful changes to the means test so that a family's considerable additional outgoings are taken into account. This will truly help families who spend so much of their time worrying about the health and survival of their loved ones and could really do without these extra financial worries and pressures. Thank you.
Good morning, all committee, and thank you for having me. It's beautiful here in June. We don't have so much sun, so it's a fantastic day. My name is Anna, and I'm a mom of 5 beautiful children. My baby Esther was born with trisomy 21 and AVSD, a serious heart condition. And only last week she was diagnosed with deteriorating eyesight, which means she needs to wear glasses from now on. And of course, unfortunately, she also has other medical complications. I would like to ask you to end the means test for Carers Allowance and change the laws for parents like me, especially when child is born with lifelong disability. There are such huge gaps in the system. The Irish Constitution says in Article 41 that the state shall therefore endeavour to ensure that mother shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labour to neglect of their duties at home. We came to Ireland in December 27 when my husband's job from another EU country moved him over on a project, and we worked always since then. We never ever claimed any social payment or benefit in this country. When things got harder in Dublin with rising costs, we moved around the country several times to get better jobs and more stability for our family. Knowing that our family was growing, we haven't been reckless with money and saved as much as possible for the house deposit. We changed jobs and schools for our children and left friends behind. It took us over 10 years to save money for a deposit to be able to buy in rural Ireland, so that's where we moved in 2017, and my husband had to commute to work daily. We worked hard to provide for our family all these years. To get this salary, we studied and paid for education several times over these years. We were never abusing system, and we are punished for that now. Down syndrome diagnosis accompanied by additional health conditions require more appointments, more diesel, more travel, more tools, more parking, more babysitting, more private therapies, more glasses, more money, and no break. Costs associated with this care are continuously rising. If you have more children like us, this will reflect on additional childminding costs when you are away. Even basic day-to-day expenses such as food, heating and bills and every height are very high and will rise in the future. It is only May and I'm already worried about how we are going to cover September, secondary school and boys in the primary. Our financial situation is causing tremendous stress for the family and pressure on our marriage. Only yesterday, we had to travel to Kremlin for an early cardiology appointment. This meant putting our 4 children to a childminder at 5:15 in the morning to be in Dublin by 8:15 for the appointment. Excuse me. When my daughter Esther was born last June, she was in hospital for several weeks. I commuted to her every single day. After my husband had to go back to work, we had to organize someone to care for the children in the meantime. These were all high costs. I was expressing breast milk every 3 hours, day and night, for 5.5 months. Directly after expressing, I was NG tube feeding my Esther every 3 hours with the breast milk, as it was the best recommendation from her cardiologist. In total, I spent 35 net days just expressing and NG tube feeding Esther during her first 6 months of her life. I was exhausted on every level you can imagine. Nevertheless, I did it because that was the best for her. My work as a full-time carer is not valued by the Irish government, which is very wrong and shocking considering the Irish Constitution. Caring for a baby with a lifelong disability is extremely demanding. Physically, emotionally, and financially. Just to say that you are over the limit without any regard for essential expenses associated with this care is cruel and puts family in a desperate situation. Dear committee, I have only one wish, for Esther to be healthy. I don't want hospital appointments, hospital stays, therapies, or fighting with government departments. But I don't have this choice. Now I feel I'm being punished for accepting and loving my child, not perfect in the eyes of this world. But if you meet my Esther, dear committee, she's lovely. She is a beautiful child. I work 24/7 with love to care for my Esther. I want to give her all possible opportunities in this world. But without money, it is impossible. My husband pays huge taxes each month, yet we are not able to get help when we need it, just because we are not abusing the system. Every mother or father who cares for a special needs child since birth should be paid carers allowance in full, no question asked. As if it is not hard enough for parents like us. Our lives are changed forever. No one asked if we want that. Last November, I was awarded a carers allowance of €12.50 a week. However, 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from the department that this is being reviewed and this payment might be removed and I have to pay back whatever I received. I understand that the carers allowance is means tested. However, I would like to highlight that it is not reasonable to accept means-tested calculation based on gross income and not consider other necessary expenses, such as mortgage, car repayment, or other expenses linked with additional health complications if your child is sick. There are other expenses our family also incurs. We do not have a medical card or any other support. We are completely and 100% dependent on one salary alone. I have no idea how I can support my other children in their development going forward. It is impossible to survive like that for more than a few months if you have savings. I am a qualified medical scientist, but cannot work due to Esther's care need. How ironic we are hardly meeting our surviving costs and using our saving with this means test. There is no way for a family in our situation to set any money aside for life or health emergencies, pension or recreation to elevate pressure linked with being a full-time carer. This journey is so lonely. It is important because from a long-term perspective, we are only humans and we have no break. The weekend, no full night's sleep. I want to be available for my family in good health. I am not blessed enough to have close or extended family to be around and help me even a little bit or provide a safety net for me or my children. Healthy children are a little different, and I know that because I have 4 healthy children. They could grow up with less, and one day, please God, they will be able to take care of themselves and contribute to the system and to the whole society. Esther, however, will not be the same. Money is important. It has to be recognized that the lower middle class family who brings special needs children into this world will not be punished for working hard for years and all over the years and not abusing the system. We are backbone of the society, all the working families creating values for the future. Thank you for your time and attention and have a lovely day from the sunny Tube.